Hello and welcome to the Qreative Life podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Qureshi, but you can call me Q. Welcome, Georgina Kiersten. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine. Happy New
Wonderful.
Year.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you're a San Antonio person.
Yes, born and raised.
Yeah, waving from Austin.
Oh, you're not too far from me at all.
No, in fact, my son lives in San Antonio. He goes to UTSA.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. We love going up there or down, I guess, just for the weekend and hanging out. Um, so I met you on Blue Sky,
hmm
right? Yeah, I started following you there because I wanted to follow a bunch of different indie authors. I'm an indie author, and you came up in one of the feeds, and I was like, oh, that looks like an interesting person. Follow. And turns out you are. So thank you for making time to come on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So I'm gonna kick us off with an icebreaker question and ask you, what was the last book that you read?
The last book that I read was Pretty Promises by K.L. Hernandez.
What what was it about? Is it a romance?
Um,
It sounds
it
romantic.
absolutely is a romance. It's a dark romance. It's one of the rare Latinx dark MM romances because there's not a lot of dark Latinx MM romances in this space. And I happen to be a friend of KL Fernandez. And she was talking about, oh my God, I have a MM romance coming out soon. And I basically just kept track of it. And when it dropped right before the end of the year, I dropped everything to read it, and then I paused it deliberately so I can have it as my first read of the year.
Sweet. And are you done with it?
Yes, and it's excellent. It
Is
is
it?
excellent. It
Okay.
is. It's part of a series that features Afro Latinx, and that's also what brought my attention was that like most of the people are Afro Latinx as love interests, and I was really excited about it. And then they're coming out with a sapphic romance in that same series very soon. So I am just over the moon.
Wonderful. So do you stay pretty plugged into, because you write in this genre, right? You write romances,
Mm-hmm.
you have diverse characters, both ethnically and sexually diverse
Mm-hmm.
characters, right? So do you have sort of like I guess, a community of folks that you not maybe work with, but work around and keep tabs with? And excellent.
It was very important to me and from the very beginning to have a diverse and robust network of professionals, of other authors who are just as passionate as I am to bring diversity into the LGBTQ plus romance book community. And I've been blessed and made so many great friends from all different types of all different walks of life. And I keep my head to the ground, my ear to the ground rather, um, trying to find other diverse books I can get into because it kind of gets isolating when all you're reading about is white people. And
Mm,
so, especially if you're an LGBTQ plus person, because there's a assumption of whiteness with that particular label or that particular intersection. So I always get excited to see representation, especially racial representation in this space.
wonderful. So, and I want folks to know right off the bat, you write under your name, Georgina Kiersten. You also write under Jasper. What was the other one? Jasper Hyde.
Hide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And we're going to link to your website and your books in our show notes so people can find you and buy your books and all of that kind of stuff. Um, so I want to kick off and talk about just you as a creative person. Um, you, at what point, or maybe just start kind of rewind and tell me about growing up and at what point you decided or maybe realized that you're a writer.
I have always had stories in my head. I watched a lot of, because I grew up unknowingly at the time, an autistic kid with ADHD, and that's very isolating. So my only friends were these characters from the books, but I also, at the heart of me, have always been a fan fiction writer. I always want to know what happens after the story is told. And I would always come up with those ideas in my head, but I didn't know what to do with them. And so I grew up sort of having that particular mindset, but not knowing what else you can do. Because I grew up in the 90s and the early aughts, and I didn't have internet until I was an adult. So I didn't know anything about fan fiction at all. I didn't even know it was a thing until I was an adult. And then I found fan fiction, and it was like, oh, this is where I could do with those stories. But even before that, I think my senior year of high school, I took a creative writing course because I didn't want to take English, because to this day, I have a love and hate relationship with English grammar. And so I said, I don't want to do another year of regular English classes. So my senior year of high school, 2002, because I'm that old, I took a I took a creative writing course. And which again, kind of lit my imagination ablaze about what diversity can do, is because my teacher was white and Chinese. And so she would bring her culture into the classroom and taught teachers about Lunar New Year. And she was sort of my first real entrance into like the Asian diaspora, the Asian media, which I'm still a consumer of even today. But like, she taught me what diversity can do. And she also taught me how to take those ideas that I had in my head and put them on paper. Like first 10 minutes of the class was free writing. And so you had to throw your shit. Yeah, you had to throw your shit onto the paper and write. And I remember famously, I was in high school, I was really into geek stuff, right? And I had a whole bunch of white boy geek friends. You know exactly who I'm talking about, the D&D players, those type of dudes. So I'm so proud, I'm so happy. And I bring my first story to them, and my friend is like, this sucks. You know, he's like, oh my God, this sucks. You have all these sentences crammed together in one paragraph. This sucks. But it also, like, because I'm a spiteful person to my core. And so if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. And so for the last 25 years, I've had an off and on relationship with writing. And in the last, I would say 7 years, it's going to be 7 years this fall, in which I have taken that passion and did something with this, first with like my fan fiction, and then on into the professional realm of being a writer.
So, I think I saw something on your website or somewhere that I guess you were writing on Wattpad. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still writing on Wattpad.
Okay. So, I had no idea what this was. My daughter, who's 23, she clued me into what this was, and her friends, they like it's almost I want to say it's almost a form of social media for them. Like they not only do they have that creative outlet, but then they co-write things together. And some of the stuff is just bonkers, but I think that's what makes it so fun to read and fun to write, obviously. What were your like what kind of fan fiction were you writing?
Infamously, like I used to, because I've had many pen names before I stopped on this pen name that I have now, which is Inglorious Gigi, because I refuse to hide that I write fan fiction and write professionally. I just had this discussion actually today. So I have I I have the same usernames across all social media, across AO3 and Wattpad. However, that wasn't all the case, because like I think my first real entry into fan fiction was like Stargate SG-1 and Buffy and Highlander, like OG 90s fandom. And I would write horrible shit and just throw it on fanfiction.net. Like fanfiction.net and the email servers and LiveJournal. And it was all awful. It took me a long time to get to this place in my career, in my writing journey, where I can read my stuff and be excited to read it. Because it was just like, I've had this love and hate relationship with writing since I first realized I could write. Because I'm not only ADHD, not only autistic, but I'm dyslexic and I'm severely dyslexic. And it's been like, there was years, I think I left writing for about 5 years because writing was a chore. Like it was a chore. I hated it more than I loved it. And I always get this advice of, there's so many other ways you can make money. There's so many other ways you can be creative. And if writing is painful for you, stop. And I did for 5 years. And then I came back to it in 2019, writing like, a Batman crossover called Playing Hero. And I fell back in love with writing. But like writing has always been a struggle, but it's like that one relationship where you should say goodbye, you should never like get back with that person, but you can't just quite let them go. There's something hooking you back in. And so I came back into writing in 2019 through fan fiction. And my mom, who's my greatest supporter, she truly is. She's actually in the dedication of my first book. And she was like, you should make money off of this. You should stop, doing things for free, because leave it to me, right? I'm a diehard socialist. I would get everything for free. If I got universal income today, I would never charge a dime. That's the way I work. And my mom was just frustrated with me. She's like, why don't you do this professionally and make money? And I think something like I got, and out of spite, because I got, and Hercules and Xena is on my brain because I've been talking about it recently. But infamously, I was a Hercules fan, Hercules Legendary Journeys first, and then I got into Xena. And I, as a result, has followed the actors online. And so I didn't realize that Kevin Sorbo was a Republican, a diehard Republican, like a MAGA Republican, like very racist, very homophobic. And he said something very racist and homophobic. And I was like, I'm going to write a Black queer Hercules, and I'm going to tag you in it the moment it drops. Now, I never did write that book, but it was like the push to get me off the fence. And I've never looked back since.
That's fantastic. Okay, two things. One, oh my God, I had no idea. That's horrible. Two, Lucy Lawless is still okay. And I just watched there's a series, like a detective series that she's in on Acorn TV. So she's out there, she's still doing the stuff, and she's awesome. And so many people I know came up from like the Xena cult, right? The online Xena cult, right? Why do you think, because you at the beginning of your your story there, you were saying that you refuse to hide the fact that you do fan fiction as well as work as a professional writer. Why do you think fan fiction gets such a bad rap?
Our world is a capitalist society. And I hate to sound political, right? Like more political than usual, because I am a raging leftist online. If you even like read one post of mine on my social media. But this world is a capitalist society, and capitalism tells us that the only thing of worth is if you make money from it, if it's like monetary, and that things that are done for the love of it is worthless. And this is where people are encouraged to monetize hobbies, even though that could kill your love for that hobby. It used to do that for me. So because one, it is It's not. It's writing stories simply for the love of writing stories, simply for the love of the characters and that fandom that has been created. And so we as a society are taught that that is weird, that we would give shit for free, which I don't get. Like, down in my socialist heart, again, I would give everything for free if I could afford to do so. I cannot, so that's why I charge. But another portion of this is that the biggest population of fandom is women, and in particularly queer and trans folks. And so, as we see in romance, because romance is a female dominated community, it's like, oh, that's gross. That's not great. It's not high literature. It can't have themes. It can't move you. It can't change you because it is a woman dominated thing, a thing that is made by women, a thing that is made by queer and trans people. And then you also have to, because primarily write LGBTQ plus stuff. Like, even if it's like het assuming, which is the one that I'm writing right now, the temporary spouse. It's still like Tony and Candace are both bi, Candace is trans, so it's still LGBTQ plus, and so that is inherently politicized and inherently, well, I do write smut, so inherently sexualized. But we're having such a conservative backlash right now in our society that anything that is even remotely sexual or inherently politicized is looked down upon. So we have those three components working together, and which is strange because fanfiction fandom is the biggest moneymaker. They make or break movies and TV. You know, Teen Wolf, which is let me say this, Teen Wolf, which is the MTV show, which was supposed to reboot of the 1980s movie franchise. That would have never gotten to the level it did without fandom, without queer fandom. And so we have this sort of weird, place in our world right now where the upper people in like the film execs knows that we exist and that we are money makers and they need us, but they don't want us because we're weird.
I don't think you're weird. I think I think that is actually exactly right. I think that's exactly right. Really good analysis of that, actually. And I hadn't thought of putting those three pieces together. I do think there is definitely an element of capitalism there. And I think that there's always been, this straight, white, cishet male domination of frankly every industry, but especially the arts and writing. And then our current political climate is just sort of like put that on steroids. Um, so but the other piece to the fanfic world is that, and I think that and I what I want to say is that your story was really inspiring to me because the way you went about cultivating yourself as a writer was that you just did it, right? A lot of people want to wait until all the conditions are right. They have an MFA, they have all this stuff, they've published this XYZ and in this many articles and blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to claim the mantle of author, right? And one of the coolest things I think, about the fan fiction community and just like Wattpad and those kinds of platforms in general is that you're honing your skills with the feedback that you're getting, right? So it's as if you're taking it upon yourself and you're like, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to treat myself as some precious little object. I'm going to get into the fray. I'm going to start producing this work and then take whatever comes to me and use that to develop myself as a writer, which is really, really courageous I think, and also a hell of a lot more fun than sitting in a bunch of classes, right? Like I would much, I'm not traditionally or, whatever trained either. So I am a person that learns by doing. And so to me, that really appeals to me. And I'm sorry, I never learned about those platforms until, till I was an old lady.
I'm 41. Like I'm 41 and I didn't get started writing again. I took that 5 years off and I didn't get back into this space until like 2019. So I was like mid 30s
Wow.
at the time. And so that with the urgency of like, look, I could die at any moment, especially because COVID and all that stuff that happened after. It was like, okay, I could die at any moment. I can, no time is granted to me. And then like I had the idea of like legacy, like what legacy I want to leave behind, and I wanted that to be. Well, my children are their own people, and so they're their own legacies, and I don't want to like put the mantle of legacy on my children. But I really decided early on that my legacy would be my stories. And if I wanted to leave a legacy, I had to start immediately. Because I've already, like, there's people who've been writing since they were like 12, right? And
Mhm.
who are published early 20s. And I'm here mid to late 30s. And I'm like, oh, this is my calling. Finally, after doing a million different jobs because I have ADHD. And so we tend to go through jobs a lot, and I'm being like, and this answer has been sitting there waiting for me to get here all this time. I mean, like, I'm not, because I have always suffered from imposter syndrome, especially because I am a disabled person and I have like dyslexia, right? And so I'm here talking to Beverly Jenkins one day, or I'm talking or having a conversation with Kennedy Ryan, who's arguably one of the greatest Black romance writers of our generation. And I'm like, I have to step up and I have to do my best. And that's sort of that, and the thought of legacy really pushed me. And also fan fiction. And I was steeped in fan fiction, like through my from 2004 on. So I've been here a while. And so fan fiction tells you, if you don't like the stories that you're seeing around you, if you don't like what the fandom creator, the executive producer, the showrunner, whatever has made, you have the power to change it in fiction. You don't need to have a special like degree. You don't have to have any experience. Just get up and change it. And that puts the power in your hands. Like I was thinking about this because of Marvel, because I've been like, uh, Avengers Doomsday is coming out this year, and I've been seeing a lot of teaser trailers, and I've been like, not very happy with it, famously, very happy with it. And then I realized the Marvel fiction that I'm writing right now, I can change whatever they give me in fiction. And that is the power of fan fiction. And then you take that power and you put it as a professional writer, and you put it uh you put it into your stories, and you kind of have a more gung-ho approach. And I think for me, it lit a fire underneath me because it told me like I could do a Sleepy Hollow retelling, right?
Mhm.
I could take what like Fox gave us and just take a little bit, a little tiny little bit of that and do my own thing. And I would have never had the courage to do that without my experience in fan fiction.
That is now that when you put it that way, and also just your anecdote about making Kevin Sorbo slash Hercules into, into something completely different that the actor would not appreciate. There's great power in that, right? And I think that that's another sort of aspect to why fan fiction gets looked down on, not because I think that people who tell stories, people that own intellectual property, people that have this very well-funded platforms, they have an agenda. We all have an agenda, but they have an outsized agenda. And when they put something out into the world and folks take that and are like, no, we're going to make this ours, it really it undermines that power. And it's actually a very like punk thing to do, is to say, no, no, I see that story. It's all right, but I'm going to turn around and I'm going to turn it into something that is meaningful to me and people like me who you may not like or appreciate or value. And wow, what an incredible power that is. Uh, so at what point did you decide to move from, like, tell me about that transition where you're like, I'm going to now build out a platform as a professional writer? What went into that decision, and like at what point did that happen?
So I started on Twitter. I'm no longer on Twitter. I created that Twitter in response to Donald Trump's election, his first election. And I was very politically active. I am still very politically active. But I got really burnt out with all the like internal politics of sort of the leftist political sphere. And I was often used as like an attack dog because, they don't, a lot of people just see a Black person and they're like, this is going to prove my point. And so I got really tired of that. And around 2019, and the whole Kevin Sorbo thing, and I didn't finish that story. That story is dead and gone. Hopefully one day maybe I get back to it, but I don't know. And then at the same time, I was reading Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I know it gets a lot of flack. It does. That's my favorite book. I refuse to apologize for it. And I was like, oh, like our stories, because it was at the top of the bestseller list for like weeks. I was like, oh, our stories are valuable. People want to read our stories. And so I was like, I'm going to write a sort of Black Red, White, and Royal Blue. And it was going to be called The Bipartisan Affair. Now, this story was a hot mess express. And I did like 3 or 4 drafts and then I just gave up the ghost. But the thing is, I didn't stop writing. I did something else and I did something else and I did something else. And I did that for like, oh my God, stop turning off my alarm. I did that for 2 years of just writing and learning the ropes of publishing and just paying attention. And I was like at the end of my rope, I think 2021, I was like, look, I went to a tarot reader, honey. I went to a tarot reader and I was like, am I ever going to publish author? It's never gonna. And I was just so ridiculous then looking back at it. And like the tarot publisher was like, yeah, the tarot reader was like, yeah, you're going to be a published author. You're not going to be a famous published author right away. You're going to learn a lot of things along the way. And it sort of gave me the courage to just like dial everything back. Because at that time in my life, I had such grand ideas of who I would be as a published author. And then I realized I had to do like an Occam's razor and just make everything simple. And so I decided to, start with The Devil's Bargain, which was written under my pen name that's no longer in fact. It's called The Devil's Bargain by Ryan Fox, and which was like a demon erotic romance. And then I did right after that in the same year, Fall Into You, with 2 very simple books, very thin, very simple books. And now I'm writing like novels and things are like 70,000 word plus. So I've come a long way, but I started very simple and just starting and allowing myself to be imperfect. And because like The Devil's Bargain was very imperfect, and now I'm rewriting it as A Damning Desire under the Jasper Hyde name on Wattpad. But like I allowed myself to just start. And what that taught me as a writer is that your drive for perfection is going to hold you back. And so you have to allow yourself to be imperfect and to make mistakes, and you'll grow as you go. And I actually had this conversation a lot with other new authors who've gone on to do great things. And I was like, just get the book out there. It's okay. And also, your first book, if you're not a trad published author, your first book is going to suck. It just is. So just accept the suck, and then go on to write the next book and the next book and the next book, and you'll get there. And that's how I've like got to this place where I have accepted how I wanted to write and when I wanted to write, and taking control over the way that I move through this community.
I think you need to make t-shirts that say accept the suck. I completely agree with that. Like I just published my debut and I'm 51, right? And I have always wanted to write novels and spent years like stop, start, and never really putting myself out there out of fear of being judged or whatever. I mean, who knows? Like one thing that I've learned through this process is like working on a novel or working on any creative project that big pulls up all kinds of crazy shit. Like you just like you the writing is actually the easy part. The hard part is like wrestling with your own sense of like self and your own desires and your own ideas about who you are and who people think you are. And it's a lot of just bullshit in your head, right? And so getting it out there and realizing, oh, it's not so bad. It's not so good, but it's not so bad, right? And there's a starting place for you to start building off of. I don't think that I think that's the most important thing any new writer or creative can do is just start putting shit out there, right? And not worry about whether or not people are going to go crazy over it or whether they're going to, I always say Van Gogh, who is considered the greatest artist so far, widely regarded, never sold a painting. Never sold a painting when he was alive, right? And we have this capitalist mindset that unless the market loves it, it doesn't have any real value. And we also look at our creativity and our creative output as the valuable thing is the product. And it's actually the process that's valuable. The product is whatever. And I've read lots of books by like authors or whatever who say, you go back, you read your first stuff and you're like cringe, right? Nobody, if you're doing it right, you're never your first thing or as you go through your creative career, you're going to look back and you're going to see all these flaws and you're going to be like, ugh. So you might as well just rip the band-aid off and do it. Just get into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And famously, there's one of my friends. He goes by the picture of Ash J, right? And he loves a devil's bargain. He loves it. He gets into my DMs. He was the most excited that I was rewriting it. But even before I rewrote it, he was like, "This is my favorite book of yours." And I'm like, "Fall Into You is there. More to Love is there. Swinter's there." No, he loves that first book. And you have to sort of realize that the percentages, it's a numbers game. You're gonna, even if your book sucks the most, I I'm a shit on Stephanie Meyer for a moment.
Oh yes, please.
Stephanie Meyer's Stephanie Meyer's ratings and her reviews is very funny because you like I'm like, this sucks categorically, right? This sucks so much. E.L. James books is like that as well. It's like, it sucks. And then you see people with 5-star reviews, leaving five, and you're like, am I? But that's the power of perception, and reader bias and all that good stuff. Because even if your book sucks, unless it's AI slop and you didn't try, Audra Winter. No, hold on. Milo Winter. Sorry. I dropped the dead name. Sorry about that. Milo Winter, who did not try, right? And in my opinion, just dropped a first draft and did it. See, readers can tell the difference. But if you absolutely did try, they will rock with you, right? And so you got to, as an author, you have to realize that even if your book sucks, even if it's not your best, there's going to be people who still love it and will rock with you. And you need to write it for them and you need to get better for them. And I've been very lucky that I've had people from the very beginning who are still with me who are like, I saw you get to this point. And it's a beautiful process in hindsight. But like, I remember being terrified, just like, especially that launch day. Oh, launch day. launch day, like shaking in your boots, constantly refreshing your Amazon, your KDP analytics, because you're like, oh my God, are they going to like it? Is it going to suck? Am I going to make money for it? All those things go through your head. But the most important lesson I have learned is just to start. Embrace the suck and just start and get feedback.
Yes.
Embrace, again, Milo Winters, get feedback. Listen to that feedback, because that's a part of how you get better, is listening to the feedback and just to embrace the journey of growing into your craft. Because like, I'm gonna go talk about AI, and I know people are gonna roll their eyes. Okay, we not talk about AI, but you can't talk about writing today
Yeah.
without addressing AI. See, the problem with AI generated shit is that it these people often want like oh God, who's a they want Casey McQuinton levels of writing, right off the bat, without learning, without
Right.
failing, without the tears, without, because I famously cried through my edits of my last book, just like yeah, all of that. That's part of the mantle of being an author, of being a writer, is you have to take the good with the bad. You have to learn and grow. And I infamously say there's no such things as master writers. This is a master course with like N.K. Jemisin and J.R. Martin. I said they are successful writers, but they are not master writers, because you never master art, especially writing. If you're not learning and growing and listening and incorporating feedback, and there's a lot of big name authors who have stopped listening to their editors, and
Yep.
so their writing style has stagnated over time. J.K. Rowling. It reflects in your writing, and like, and you going through the easy way out of like, hey, I'm gonna put this prompt in, and the computer is gonna write and spit out this stuff. It's not gonna make you grow. It's gonna stagnate your writing style. And so, like, and then and then what's crazy to me is that people will try to like conflate it between assistive AI and generative AI. It's like, I don't have a problem with writers using tools. I have zero problem with that. I have a problem when it's taking over your entire writing, where
Right.
it's all generative AI, where it's not even all, it was like a quarter of generative AI is a little too much for me. Like, I don't mind if like I do care about the environmental effects of AI. I do. But if you took that off the table, I wouldn't care if you like put in chat GPT, like, what's the name for the street I want to put in my story, right? Or I need you to come up with a name for my character. Or hell, pro writing aid, in which, they'll pick up like your grammar mistakes. I have no problem with that. But generative AI, using it is not real writing. If
Right.
you're just writing prompts and getting shit, on a page, that's not going to teach you anything. It's not going to teach you how to hone your skills. And so we have not only the de-evaluation of literature that's happening right now, the de-evaluation of art. We also have like the mass exodus of editors from both
Yeah.
trad and indie. And so what we have here is like people sort of giving in to like the urge of easy,
Yep.
of easy. Like I can have them write this sex scene for me, or I can have it write. I like, look, ghostwriting is a thing. If you can't write that sex scene, go pay a human to do that shit. There are people who actually do that for you. Or you can't write that action scene no matter what you do, at least try, right?
Right.
Hire someone. But you, like, not even trying, not even trying. Like, I think that's what kills me. And like, people are not even trying, because to me, I am deeply passionate about the art of writing romance, deeply passionate of the history about romance, deeply passionate about what romance will be in the future. And I just like people who think they can just, you know, type in some prompts and have the same level work of like Beverly Jenkins is
Right.
concerning. When writing is an art and you have to evolve over the years, you have to grow, you have to be passionate about growing better in that art, or you might as well just put it, you might as well just like write for yourself and nobody else and call it a good old day.
Right. You know what? This is what I'm talking about when I say that our society values the product over the process. That's what all this AI bullshit is. It's just, oh, I want to sell a product. I want to put my name on it and I want to present myself as this thing, as opposed to I want to cultivate this skill. I want to create as an artist, right? And like I understand, like I do understand. It is so hard. Like AI cannot make art. Art is a singularly human endeavor. It's an outward expression of the internal world of the human being through a singular, reproducible lens. Each person has a unique lens on the universe, and they have their own way of expressing themselves. And like, even if I would rather read Twilight all day than read some kind of brilliant AI slop, because I mean, I don't know Stephanie Meyer, but she's a human being. And like I would rather hear what she has to say any day. Any day. And I think that that's just the like this is the thing. Is like you're right on when we say when you put that kind of capitalist label on this whole, like the whole, well, not even just writing, all of our endeavors right now. We really believe that we are creating when we allow something, when we outsource our creativity to a machine. And again, I know there's lots of debate. I know there's fine lines. I'm also not opposed to the use of different tools. But when it comes to actually developing a story, there's no substitute. And even if it's quote unquote well done, that's not what's important to me. The end product is not what's important. What's important is what the creator did and how they went about it. And I,
I would like to,
like,
I wanted to interrupt you right here
yeah, yeah.
because you made a really good point. If it's well done AI, especially, I'm not even talking about art, right? I'm gonna put that to the side because that's a whole different thing. But written works, that's because they had a human editor edit that, or they went behind. And this is what I don't get. And I've said this once, I've said this before. You got to go back and draft it anyway, right? So you're drafting the humans, you're drafting a machine's output for what, when you could just be editing your own output. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it makes no sense. Or there's, if it's really well done and it's AI, they have exploited a human editor to make it that good. You always have to think about what's going on in the background, what has made, because writing a book is a production. Publishing a book is a production. It's not just you. It is your editors, it is your book formatters, it's your audiobook people. It's a whole production. So it's not just you. But when it comes to AI slop, it is not only are you ripping off other authors, you are exploiting editors as well. And I've had conversations with editors who are like, I have to put clauses in my contracts these days because I refuse to do that. And so, like, when we get these books that have been called out for AI and they have an editor, you have to think to yourself, did this editor know what was going on? Did they know they was exploited for this? Also, if you're using them to edit AI slop, you should be paying them more than they're worth. Even though I disapprove of it, like you should be paying them more than they're worth because their human experience is what's going to make that book good.
That's
Not
right.
like I've seen AI, like pure AI slop, right? It is seasonless, seasonless, no human expression, just like unbaked chicken. Okay. White as snow. And I've seen this like on TikTok all the time because some white lady's like, I don't want no stupid seasoning. And they will come up with this white ass chicken, whiter than a piece of paper. It is ridiculous. That's what that is to me. That's what AI slop is to me.
Yeah.
It's seasonless chicken because AI does not know how to emote. It can try to mimic it sometimes, right? But it doesn't know how, it doesn't experience human emotion. And so it can't put that into the actual work. You have to actually go back and edit that in yourself, which is extra work, which I don't understand. I am lazy, okay? I am lazy to my core. I don't understand giving yourself extra work, especially because I pay a hell of a lot for editors. And my editors would look at me in my face and laugh and then walk. So I'll be by myself trying to make this seasonless chicken seasoned. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. Agreed. 100%. Like it's complete nonsense. And it makes me feel like people who generate that kind of crap and then try to pass it off as authentic art or whatever have never truly read books that move like blow their mind. If you've ever read a book like, that just blows your mind, you're like, this is not this can't come from a machine. It cannot. And whatever. I know it's like I'm in several groups online and people are constantly fighting about this. And there's a whole contingent of people who are just convinced that AI is legitimate as a form of creativity. And I will never, never agree to that. Never. It may have millions of other, uses. I mean, if we want to use AI to try to cure cancer, amazing. Do it, right? Let's see how all the researchers and doctors like having their jobs taken away. Fuckers. Um, okay, one more thing before we have to close out. You're very open on your website and in your public sort of persona about the different aspects of your life where you've had challenges. You mentioned them here: dyslexia, autism, ADHD. You also are a Black writer, and you are a queer writer, and so that's there are a lot of challenges there in our as a creator in our society. But I want to flip the script a little bit and ask you what it is about those parts of yourself that are actually beneficial to you as a writer. What is it that you bring to the table because of these parts of yourself that other writers simply don't?
Being Black and LGBTQ is always a is always interesting. It's because you know Black people have their own spice, have their own like language, have their own like most of the time I can pick out if an author is Black or not, like in the first couple of pages, and then you add the fact that you're LGBTQ plus onto that, and what you get is a look into a point of view that's not often seen. Because again, um, if you consume LGBTQ plus media or even Black media, you don't see a lot of queer or trans people in Black media. You don't see a lot of people of color in queer or trans media. It's always default white. And so what I get to do is bring both the history and the culture and the language that comes with me being a Black American, and like all of the flair and all of the other stuff from being LGBTQ, and I get to put it in that space. And my mission from the jump was I want to make all of those book lists especially MM romance book lists, which is my biggest community I'm a part of, be less white. Because I remember looking through a Goodreads list, several Goodreads lists, and there was nothing but white people as far as the eye can see. And I came in here passionate about changing that. And I found some really great authors and some really great books, but it is still white. And when you as an LGBTQ plus person, especially, are looking through things like that, it makes you feel isolated. It makes you feel like you don't belong. And then you add Blackness in it, where Black people are more socially conservative across the board. And so they think the only way to love is through traditional gender roles, and a man loves a woman, and I mean a cishet man loves a cishet woman, and you have kids and blah, 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 blah. And so if I'm sitting here in the middle in those intersections, and I'm like, I want to be seen, and I know other people like me want to be seen. And so I bring like the ability to be bold, because I write a lot out of pocket stuff. I write about impreg, and which is, male pregnancy. I write about fat action stars. I write about, queer Black mafia people. I do things that are often seen in white spaces. I do it with a Black flair, right? With LGBTQ plus flair, and because Black LGBTQ plus culture is like a subculture underneath Blackness, underneath like Black American culture. It's kind of like it's still it feels like it's not seen nearly enough. It feels like it's still like we're still on the edges, and I want for Black LGBTQ plus people to see that they are not alone, that they can be powerful and loved, they can get justice, they can be respected, they can be empowered, and they don't have to change a goddamn thing about themselves, because they are perfect just the way they are. Just the way they are. And that's what I bring to the table, is I tell them to their face, you can be a fat Black person and be an action star. You could be a fat Black person and be a king of a demon kingdom. You could be a fat Black person, and be the head of a mafia gang, right? You can be who you are authentically and still have everything that you desire. And that's what I bring to the table. And this is what a lot of people are bringing to the table. And I'm a shout out somebody. I have a friend, I guess her name is Hontens. It's Hontnse, I think. Anyway, I read a Sinners and an Interview with a Vampire crossover fan fiction, in which Stack and Lewis get together. And I was blown, and the language is beautiful, and the smut is immaculate. And I'm like, this is what I love. Because I love Sinners, but it's very het normative, right? But this blows that out of the water with the same language and the same visuals, but with our own flair as Black LGBTQ plus people. And this is what I'm talking about. If I had seen something like that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, as a Black person, because is a running myth that Black people can't be queer. Black people can't be trans, because that's white people shit. Even though we have centuries of history from Africa, from the motherland, that says otherwise. And all that has disappeared, not because of us, is because of the white supremacy, which upholds white patriarchal standards. And so we have been like that history, that culture has been overrun. And so when I see stuff like that, both in fandom and like Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding, or my friend, or Pretty Promises or whatever by Kayla Hernandez. When I see that happening, I say Pretty Promises. Yeah, it's Pretty Promises. I think, yeah. Pretty Promises by Kayla Hernandez. When I see Black people be queer and proud and authentic on page, it gives me joy, because I would have came out sooner. I didn't come out until I was an adult. And I thought I was weird and I was strange, because, everybody else, you as a Black feminine presenting person, you are expected to get married, you're expected to have children. And if you don't do that, you are weird, you are strange, you are pushed to the side. And I wanted, in particular, for Black LGBTQ plus people to see themselves represented and see themselves getting everything they desire authentically as themselves.
Amazing. Amazing. You know what it feels like? It feels like we've gone from, you know how in The Wizard of Oz it starts out like black and white, and then all of a sudden she goes out into Oz and it's like Technicolor. I feel like something happened in the last 2 decades where because of the way technology has evolved, it's become, publishing has become accessible to so many different people. And like something happened where, we had this one tiny, narrow little view of of what creativity was. The stories that we were being told were so in this one little spectrum, and then now that so many other people have access to tell stories, it's just exploded, and we have access to so many stories and so many perspectives and so much color and so much diversity and so much beauty that never got to see the light of day because it was going through this tiny little channel. And so, I get, I hear a lot from people in publishing, around publishing, people who especially were particularly successful in those arenas before technology kind of opened up the floodgates. And, they're grumbly and all of that. And I get it, especially if you've built a career off of that, it's probably very disorienting. But man, is it good. It's so like the fiction that we have access to now is just, and quality fiction too, right? Is just unbelievable. And I'm so, so grateful that there are people like you who saw that opportunity, who and overcame so many self-doubts, and you had quote unquote disabilities, and said, fuck it, I am going to tell these stories because I want to see these stories in the world. And then you did it, and now look what we have. And I only see that getting more and more true as we go on. And so, I'm absolutely grateful to people like you who have that passion, and it's so clear that it's a passion for you, and are willing to do the work because it is a lot of work, right? And put those things and put yourself out there. Georgina, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you. Thank you for sharing of yourself.
I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad I got to talk to you because I can talk about diversity in publishing all day, as you can see from my social media. So I'm
Yes,
so happy
yes.
to talk to you.
Wonderful. So if you, I'll link to your Blue Sky and whatever social media else you have. And I encourage people to follow you and get to know you because you are not only a great writer, but also extremely entertaining person to follow on social media. You have opinions, you've got sauce, you're out there and you're not ashamed and you're not afraid. And I get inspired when I follow you. So
Oh, thank you.
no, thank you. Is there anything else before we leave that you would like to share with our vast listening audience?
Okay, so I have works up on Wattpad, A Damn Desire, which is free. You can read it every Wednesday, 3 times a month. But also A Vicious Thirst, which is my Dracula retelling. It's free also if you sign up to my newsletter. But I just launched a book blog, or rather a book and writing blog called Loud in the Margins. And it just dropped its first post this week on Tuesday. And every Tuesday, I will be dropping a new post. I got everything scheduled ahead of time, so I'm really excited about that. And we're going to talk about diversity in publishing because, again, I could talk about that all day. Book recommendations, diverse book recommendations. My first blog post is 10 novellas to get you started on your new year goal. Also, I plan on having interviews with other authors and stuff like that. It's just fun stuff. And also, if you're a geek like me and you have many opinions about geeky things, especially Marvel, because I can rant about that all day, just chill out until like March, and you'll be getting content like that as well. So yeah, a new blog for me. Yay.
Wow. Wow. Is there anything that you are not doing? You stay
A
busy, my friend.
podcast. A
Oh,
podcast.
that's next. That's next. I can see your future. Okay, thank you so much again.